The largest fee cut in Vanguard's history has just been announced. The fee reductions are expected to save investors more than $350 million this year alone. The key word in all of that was dollars, because these fee changes only apply to the US operation. But this of course coincides with Vanguard UK's decision to hike fees on smaller accounts that use their platform directly by introducing a £4 a month minimum fee. To a pot size of £1,000, that represents a 3,100% fee increase. It's a 60% increase on a £20,000 pot. That £4 fee makes it so that the Vanguard UK platform, which was once a good option for any investor with any pot size, is now really only something that you would consider if you had investments above a certain size. So when you read the press release from Vanguard USA about the fee cuts, and you see their claims that they were set up to serve a single constituency, their clients, and that their focus is to add value and not extract it, the UK fee increase feels a bit at odds with that sentiment, doesn't it? Or maybe it's an admission from Vanguard UK that they simply don't want clients who don't have pot sizes of above, say, 30k. They recently announced they're going to push back the fee increase in the UK to the end of Feb. They said they want to give people more time to consider their options. I think they're struggling with the sheer amount of people that are requesting to move portfolios away from the Vanguard UK platform and the delays caused by this. But anyway, I reached out to Vanguard in light of the news from the USA for comment, and I want to share with you what they said to me about all of this. As well as that, I want to look at a few different angles to this and some of the differences between the US and UK offerings that mean fee cuts are not always a given here like they are in America. The fee reduction in the USA is across a range of index, ETF, actively managed and passively managed equity and bond funds. Some of the funds have seen their fees cut in half. And Vanguard more broadly claims to have reduced fees now 2,000 times for their clients. The way Vanguard is owned in the USA has a lot to do with this consistent driving down of costs. Vanguard in the US is owned by its own funds, which means it's owned by the investors in those funds. This is a direct quote. So instead of paying dividends to external shareholders, we redirect our profits to our own investors in the form of lower fees. This unique ownership structure in the US is what sets Vanguard apart and lets us put investors first worldwide. So I've got an issue with that worldwide statement, as it makes it out like, the structure in the USA benefits international investors. They might indirectly benefit from it, but not in the same way that the US market does. This is taken from Vanguard's terms and conditions. Vanguard Asset Management Limited, known as VAM, is registered in England and Wales. So that's the Vanguard operation over here that we all use. And VAM is a member of the Vanguard Group of companies, of which the ultimate holding company is the Vanguard Group Incorporated, which is registered in Pennsylvania, USA. So Vanguard UK is a subsidiary of the US entity and operates under a traditional corporate structure that is different to the one in America. In other words, we don't have this redirection of profits back to investors characteristic. I'm not trying to be as direct as to imply that the subsidiaries are being run as for-profit entities in order to reduce the fees for the domestic American market. But I will say that the same structures that exist in the American market, the incentives to drive down costs that exist there, don't exist here in the same way. There are also other reasons beyond Vanguard's control that could impact the cost of investing in this market. So you'll see UCITS on many funds that we buy, so UCITS. This stands for Undertaking for Collective Investments in Transferable Securities. UCITS is much easier to say. These are EU-specific rules and are often seen as more robust than the US ones, so they offer investors greater levels of protection. For example, funds have to be held in separate entities. So the fund provider can't hold onto the funds themselves, you have to stick them in a bank. There's also stricter rules around liquidity and leverage and loads of other points. Main TLDR, increased protection and regulations for the consumers, which is great, but that of course comes at a higher cost to the fund provider. And what that means is that leads to higher costs for the investments for the individual as well. So a key difference between the total cost here in the UK and the EU and America is going to be the regulatory requirements and the administration involved in that. Okay, let's now move to the brief correspondence that I had with Vanguard about this. I want to thank them for replying first of all in a timely manner. They listed a number of reasons for the difference in the fees. The most interesting is the greater size of the US market, which gives it a greater ability to pass on economies of scale and keep fees down. They pointed out that the UK fund industry is the second largest with 10.3 trillion under management. However, that's only a quarter of the size of the US market, where the market is 40 trillion plus. They also pointed out that the US market is also more competitive than the UK and European ones because more people invest. About 22% of household wealth in the US is in investment funds and 12% is in cash. The reverse is true in Europe. I'm doing my best to change that, but what we can take from this is that the Vanguard see the US market as a bigger priority. Economies of scale are savings generated from being big. As the market is 4 times the size, Vanguard can probably generate significant savings in terms of their administration cost and then pass those savings on to investors in the form of lower fees. On the competitive point, this might allude to the fact that Vanguard feels they need to cut fees to stay in the race with other providers in that market. I really hope that we see a similar, price fight in the UK, if you will, as the market grows and it becomes more competitive. We've started to see some much cheaper global funds come to the market here in the UK as the market has matured and grown in popularity. So increased regulation, your key market being 4 times the size and a lot more competitive, and a different ownership structure that makes your fund investors the actual owners of the US arm of the business. These could all be factors behind why the US version of Vanguard is so much cheaper than the one we have over here. Vanguard did say that they hope to pass on economies of scale in the future, but, time will tell. And as we sit here right now, it's the opposite, isn't it? Fees are going up. Regardless of the reason, I'm going to use a really douchey term here, but the optics look bad. To roll out this parade and have your CEO discussing the importance of low fees and how Vanguard's core focus is their investors.
Yeah, it is really exciting. This fee cut speaks to what our founder, Jack Bogle, set out to do. There's a false dichotomy between, do you want great performance or high quality, or do you want low costs? But at Vanguard, you can get both.
All while you're in the process of a massive fee hike in one of your subsidiary markets. I don't know, just feels like bad timing or a lack of consideration for how this could be perceived by those investors in the UK. Raising fees over here while cutting them over there, people are of course going to draw a line between those 2 points. The US market is a priority due to its size and its history. I mean, I get it, but the timing of this announcement surely could have been done a bit more tactfully. I wonder really how the people who work in the Vanguard UK office feel about this, because it creates a bit of a PR headache for them, doesn't it? And also, did Vanguard USA even consider this at all? Because, this is only going to feed into the narrative that the Vanguard UK investors and fans of the brand outside of the US are not considered in the same league as Americans. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this, please, below. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think about it. But yeah, I'll see you soon.